Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. So the question is, who's gonna blink first? Well, if you ask the CCP parrots that seem to be operating in the American media apparatus, they'll smugly tell you that Trump's gonna blink first. America's hurting itself. These tariffs are a self-inflicted wound. Inflation this, inflation that. Despite, well, you know.
Bill and Dana, I think there's no other way to look at this first 100 days other than a huge success. I mean, I know what you're talking about in terms of the polling and the approval rating, but look at the president's two top issues, immigration and inflation. Border crossings are down 99%. I spoke with President Trump on Sunday. He told me 3 people were apprehended at the border in the month of April, compared with 248,000
it's remarkable.
in the month last year, 1 year ago. That's the migration and immigration story. Now let's take a look at inflation. You and I talked about eggs a long time ago. The price of eggs are down 50%. Look at where mortgage rates are down. Look at oil prices are down. So when you take a look at what President Trump said that he was going to do, it is a huge success in terms of these first 100 days.
They keep telling us all the damage is going to be sustained in the American economy, that China is totally fine, that they can handle this. So they're steadfast in their response, they're not budging. But clearly that isn't the case at all. No, it seems quite the opposite. These people are either totally deluded, total liars, or getting paid in Chinese yuan, because guess what? China obviously stands the most to lose, and they're already blinking. It seems as though Donald Trump is applying some serious pressure on them that they cannot sustain, and they're already lifting some of their reciprocal counter-tariff measures. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so yeah, after all the big talk, after all the propaganda that hit our airwaves and that you see all over social media with all these Chinese spokespeople saying China will not back down, well, they're backing down. I guess it's the usual paper tiger propaganda from Beijing. Take a look at this Reuters headline. The Chinese government just quietly waived their 125% tariff on US ethane. That's right, they didn't reduce the tariff, they completely waived it. Folded like a cheap Chinese lawn chair. Now the question is why? Well, because they're getting absolutely smoked by these tariffs, and the companies that are dependent on these imports cannot sustain it. American energy exports are too important to their extremely fragile petrochemical sector. They cannot sustain the damage. And that's obviously been the case since the start, despite what the media is telling us. China has never been in a position of strength. They are in a position of absolute dependence. Their entire economic model is built around exports and manipulation. They produce, we consume. And of course, that imbalance gives all the leverage to who? Donald frickin' Trump. You know, there might be some negative impacts on the American economy, but by and large, the nation as a whole can take that hit and can pivot. China cannot. That's what happens when you're the consumer rather than the producer. You are in the driver's seat. You're the customer. You can basically decide, well, you know what? I'm not happy with this producer, so I'm simply going to move and buy from someone else. India, Mexico, Vietnam, name your country. America can pivot, but China cannot. They have zero wiggle room. And them pretending as if they're in a position of strength at all is ridiculous, because not only are they not in a position in terms of the macroeconomic dynamic, but also diplomatically, they've burnt every diplomatic bridge that they have. Their Belt and Road partners are bailing on them. Neighboring Asian countries don't trust them at all. South Korea and Japan won't partner with them against the United States. India is walking into Donald Trump's embracing arms and hitting China with steel tariffs. And the Europeans, they're bluffing a little bit, but come on. They can't survive without the US dollar. You think they're going to side with China? Of course not. And so that leaves the CCP basically totally isolated. They're simply not in a position of strength and certainly not strong enough to have any significant impact with their retaliatory tariffs. Now, you want to talk about self-sabotage, as the media is claiming with Donald Trump. Now, the only self-sabotage that I see is on these ridiculous retaliatory plays from China. I mean, I'm seeing all these headlines popping up. Temu and Shein, these two cheap Chinese online retailers, jacking up their prices for American consumers by 300 to 400%. Look at the headlines. And the media is acting like this is some sort of terrible thing for American consumers. Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, good. Let them hike the prices. That's not hurting us. That's hurting them. That's hurting Chinese producers who are trying to flood the American market with their cheap e-commerce crap. Well, now they're basically pricing themselves out of the market, and American consumers might actually go back to supporting local businesses or buying products from companies who are willing to actually negotiate in good faith. In other words, China loses again. They apply tariffs and they lose. They have no power to be engaging in a trade war at all. And what's funny is they're already folding even though they're acting all tough. But the reality is that Trump's actually going easy on him. I mean, he's going light. This isn't even the full playbook. As Scott Bessent said, he's got a back pocket full of escalation measures. He could turn up the heat on him, closer to a 10 if he wanted to, but right now I'm pretty sure they're probably around a 2 or a 3.
Would you just take a complete decoupling with China off the table right now? Since we know global trade has benefited the globe. We don't want zero global trade. But doesn't this indicate what's at stake here?
Well, Joe, I think this makes my point that the Chinese, they are exempting all these goods, tells me that they want a de-escalation. And what we haven't done is escalate by embargoing those goods or putting a trade ban on those goods, which we could, if we needed to gain more leverage. We haven't done it. They've actually given us a list of what comes from the U.S. that is valuable to them. And I can tell you, I do have an escalation ladder in my back pocket, and we're very anxious not to have to use it.
And already China's falling apart. And really, it's crazy that this needs to be explained. It seems like such a simple concept, but for some reason, Scott Bessent has to explain to these White House press people the basic facts of this trade dynamic.
The Chinese continue to say that the U.S. and China are not engaged in any consultation or negotiation on tariffs. You recently said you've talked to your counterpart, but more about, quote, traditional things like financial stability. So can you clarify, is the administration talking to Beijing specifically about tariffs or not?
Well, we're not going to talk about who's talking to whom, but I think that over time we will see that the Chinese tariffs are unsustainable for China. I've seen some very large numbers over the past few days that show if these numbers stay on, Chinese could lose 10 million jobs very quickly, and even if there is a drop in the tariffs, that they could lose 5 million jobs. So remember that we are the deficit country. They sell almost 5 times more goods to us than we sell to them. So the onus will be on them to take off these tariffs. They're unsustainable for them.
And they are saying you guys are not talking about it. So is that true?
Look, they have a different form of government. They're playing to a different audience. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty, again, of who's talking to whom. But as I said, I believe for the Chinese, these tariffs are unsustainable.
And very quickly, 2 days ago, you said you didn't know if President Trump had spoken to Xi Jinping. Do you know now?
Again, I would say Caroline and I have a lot of jobs around the White House. Running the switchboard isn't one of them.
It is absolutely clear that China is the one that stands to lose. They're on the frickin' ropes. And any clip that you see saying otherwise, it's propaganda pure and simple. But they can blast their nationalistic garbage all over. They can go on and on and on, telling us about their national resolve and the country coming together. But all the communist propaganda in the world will not save them from the basic macroeconomic facts. And eventually, the damage will become unsustainable for them. Donald Trump is calling their bluff, and now I really think the clock is ticking, and they clearly know this. They need to act fast before they get left in the frickin' dust. The squeeze is on, folks. Let's see how long they could sustain it. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.